Good afternoon. How's everyone doing? Please have a seat. Okay, we've all been here for a couple of days, seeing a lot of amazing content. Could I ask everyone a favor? Yes? I would like for everyone, if you wouldn't mind, just to stand up for a minute. We've been sitting like we're tired, it's the end of the day. Just like stand up, maybe stretch a little bit, kind of wiggle. You can totally dance if you want to dance. And say hi if you want to meet someone new. Okay, that's great. So maybe we have a little bit more energy. You know, we're kind of ready to finish this, one of our last panels off. Now you can sit down. Thank you. So we have a great panel for you here right now. Talk about boot camps, code schools, how they're changing, who's going into engineering, and they're going to talk to you about that. So I'm just going to ask them to quickly introduce themselves, their organization, what they do. Anna?
Hello, my name is Ana Díaz-Hernández, and I do business development on our careers product at Udacity.
Hi, I'm Ryan Nadeau. I run partnerships and business development as well as our diversity initiatives here at Galvanize.
Hello, I'm Corinne Warnshuis. I'm the executive director of Girl Develop It, and Girl Develop It is a nationwide nonprofit that offers in-person, low-cost programming courses for women.
Hi, I'm Nathan Esquenazi. I'm one of the co-founders of an organization called CodePath. And what we do is we actually target three key vectors: high school and younger students who are, sparking their interest in tech, and then university students who are trying to get their foot in the door, and then finally our kind of key vector, which is professional engineers and designers who are already in the industry, but they're running against ceilings or hitting walls, and helping them transition into finding new opportunities and offering career mentorship after you're out of school. So those are the three major things that we kind of focus on.
Hi, I'm Christina Halpern. I'm the founder and executive director of All-Star Code. All-Star Code is like Girls Who Code for boys. We target high school boys of color and educate them in all of the skills they need to succeed in tech, which is both computer science, but also soft skills, entrepreneurship, growth mindset, so that they can get jobs in the tech industry.
Thank you. And Anna, if you wouldn't mind telling us a little bit about Udacity.
Sure, yeah. So Udacity is an online education company that creates online courses, and now the main focus of Udacity is really to create online degrees called nano degrees. And we specialize in technical topics, so the nano degrees are in iOS development, Android development, full stack, data science, and more are coming along the way. We co-create the content with industry leaders like Google and MongoDB, and so the goal is that increasingly, our graduates will be job ready because they have co-created the content with us, the companies have, and those students can now go and get jobs at companies that need those skills.
And Galvanize does much more than co-working, I've learned today.
You guys are in Galvanize right now, in case you didn't know. We are an ed tech company. We're sort of reinventing the way, just like everyone else up here, that education specifically around STEM is taught. We have 4 programs currently. We have an actual accredited degree in data science. It's a 1-year program. We have a 6-month full stack web development program. We have a 3-month data science engineering program, as well as a 3-month data science immersive. And we focus, again, just like Udacity, with partnering with large organizations like Google, IBM, to make sure our curriculum is in line with not just what they're looking for first day hires, but what their hires are going to need to know 6 months down the road as well. And we measure outcomes not just by graduation rate, but by actual placement in industry. So we have a 98% placement rate for all of our graduates coming out of our program.
Okay.
And I see one of our students right here. What's up, girl?
We have at least one graduate in attendance in the front row. So today we're going to talk about both the way these programs are innovative just in terms of delivering education, how that can be more inclusive and invite more diversity, and how specifically their organizations are proactively promoting diversity. So, could I ask you, Anna, if you could tell us about how does Udacity, in either way I just described, how does it bring more people into engineering, specifically, that may not take a traditional engineering route?
Yeah. So, I would say that it's completely baked into our model. It's a completely online experience, and so all our coursework is online, and the price point is $200 a month. On average, people take 9 to 12 months to complete. So really, it's a quite affordable price point, particularly for folks in the U.S. It's very affordable, and because it is a flexible timeline, folks can come in whenever it works for them. They can take 10 hours a week, 20 hours a week, and they submit their projects as they're taking the coursework, and they get reviewed asynchronously and returned to them in a quite prompt manner, and they're able to review the feedback, work on it some more if they need to work on a few topics, and resubmit if necessary. But really, it's getting this kind of hands-on support without having to be in a physical classroom. And so, from a price point perspective, from relevancy of content perspective, and flexibility, we think that's it's basically applicable to tons of people, including working professionals, working parents, and so I think it's just kind of baked into the whole thing.
Okay. Does anyone else want to speak to how sort of the structure or design of your program can be more inclusive?
Sure, I will. So Girl Develop It, so we're in 53 cities. We have about 54,000 members across the country, and the way that we engage women is primarily it's only in person, so we only do in-person classes. And for people who are looking for an alternative to online learning, Girl Develop It is really good for that. Another way that we engage other groups is we partner with a lot of community groups. A great example of that is we partner with a group called Mogulette in Philadelphia. I mean, a lot of these things happen on the local level too, so it's the communities are really, they have their own local flavor. And so in Philadelphia, we partner with a group called Mogulette that's all about engaging young African-American women in entrepreneurship, especially in tech. Excuse me. And then in Miami, for instance, we teach a lot of Spanish classes. So all of our curriculum is translated in Spanish for that community. So we engage, we try to engage women who can make it in person to a 2-hour class on a weeknight or a 8-hour class over a weekend. They're really low commitment in that way. And we can engage a lot of women that way. I think we've taught over 57,000 women in 5 years.
One of the ways, the strategy that we've developed here at Galvanize is we started a public foundation, so we have a public charity where we raise money from the corporations who have the business need for more diversity in their organizations. And typically I go to their HR departments, to their biz dev departments, I'm like, yo guys, how much does it cost you to recruit a female engineer? And then they throw out this really ridiculously high astronomical number. And I'm like, well, what if I told you it'd be cheaper to train 2 for that exact price? And then I partner with community organizations on the ground that are focusing 100% of their time to working with underserved groups, underrepresented groups in tech, and specifically who we focus on women, African Americans, Latinos, members of the LGBT community, and veterans. I co-brand scholarships with these organizations. I raise money, and for example, we have one with Women Who Code, Glass Breakers, Reverend Jesse Jackson's organization, Rainbow Push, because what I figured out is, I brought all these corporate funds, and I'm like, hell yeah. I was like, all right, you know what? We're going to do a scholarship for African Americans in data science for our 3-month data science immersive, announced it, and no one fucking applied, sorry. And I was like, well, this is kind of strange, right? And then I realized, well, you know what? I don't have the voice into this community. So we had Reverend Jesse Jackson here the next day. He was doing a press conference, and I went up to him after. I was like, yo, Rev, I was like, need your help, need your voice. You talk about the next movement and civil rights being inclusion in tech. How about I allocate this money, we co-brand a scholarship together, name it after you, after Rainbow Push, and you bring it to the community. And he did, and at that point it was the most successful scholarship program that we had launched. So what I've discovered is it's not just engaging with the corporates to get the funds to really change the pipeline into our programs, it's engaging with the community organizations that have been doing it or have been recently doing it and been doing such a kick-ass job, and merging the two together.
Could I piggyback on that with a question for the two of you, if you wouldn't mind? I'm curious to know, getting more people working, I should say, learning and understanding engineering is one thing, but getting them placed in companies is a different process. And what are some of the obstacles you see for groups who are underrepresented in tech going out through some of these kinds of programs and looking for work?
Well, I came to this as a professional journalist. I am not a coder, so everything that I learned and did to launch All-Star Code really was self-education. And one of the biggest surprises that I heard early on was from a partner at a major top VC, and he said, you know what? It's not about skills. It is not about what you know at all. It is all about connections. It is all about who you're connected to. And that really is the reason that while we support the coding schools, and essentially we are a coding boot camp, but to actually get to the hiring point, it becomes about how connected these students are. And that's why when I have a lot of problems around some of the messaging about, oh, just learn to code and you'll get a job. You know, if you just kind of complete this course and get an A, then you'll be able to get a job. And that's so rarely true, particularly for people when you don't have network. And it's not just because network is how it's not because someone's doing you a favor. It's that too often network is how you learn about the job. But even before that, network is how you know what the job requires. Network is how you get advice for the kinds of languages you should be using, the conferences you should be going to, the parties that you're attending. I mean, get down to it, and that's where tech people, and I mean, in every elite industry, that's how the recruiting is happening. So when you don't have that piece of things, I sometimes worry that all these students are going to be expending all this effort, but not getting the result that they're looking for, and feeling the door slammed in their face.
Yeah, I'd really like to add to that. I really appreciate that perspective. And one thing I want to really emphasize about what we do and what I've seen in my personal experience growing up and getting into tech is that at the end of the day, if anyone in the audience thinks back to what they do, I guarantee you first think about the person or the mentor, and then it's about the skill. The relationships that you form completely govern the direction that your life takes and the identity that you form, right? So for example, where I grew up, I was in a primarily, I'm Cuban, I grew up in a primarily Hispanic, lower income community, and what I found was that nobody in my community had ever even met a programmer, literally. Like I never met them, I don't know anyone who was a programmer, I had no connection to that industry, and through luck, really, I would say it's primarily luck, I was connected to a mentor, a family member of mine who got me my start. And I will say that in the beginning, for me, I didn't even believe it was possible for me to become an engineer or to get into the industry. It was the relationship that I built with him and later mentors that really grabbed me in. And this is something I really take very seriously, which is that the relationship and the humanistic aspect is what gets you confident enough to even try and break into the industry, and then beyond, and then adding to all the other stuff she mentioned, which is once you believe you can do it, you still can't get in unless you have entry vectors, right? You have to have somebody who can help you take that first chance on you. And people took chances on me when I was very young that completely changed the course of my life. And so for me, it's not about education, although we are an education company. It's about access to opportunity through specific, direct momentum building and building local partnerships with people who are relatable to the students they teach. Right? This is really, really important. When you're talking to a community, you always want to make sure that who is teaching them is relatable to them, that understands their situation, understands their background, and also gives them the confidence that they can actually have a role model who's already in the industry who can help them when they're down and when they run into problems. So the humanistic aspect is something we emphasize, I would say, more than anything else, far more than the technical skills.
Well, that's a great lead-in. I wanted to ask kind of an open question, perhaps for everyone, which is how you measure success. We've talked about skills and actual jobs and network and all kinds of things, but what are some of the top indicators for success that you all look at?
Well, we measure success in 3 different ways. First is just internally, we do an evaluation of our students and their computer science level based on a test that we run that has questions from the computer science AP, as well as actually questions from first semester computer science classes at top colleges. And our students got an average of 84 on that test, and that's sort of one of our initial markers. The second is continued studying in computing, and we're going to be looking at that in majoring and minoring in computer science, taking a computer science class, as well as enrolling in a coding bootcamp, which some of our students have done. There are a couple that are open to high school students. But the third is earning power. We ask our students, are you actually making money from with your technical skills? And that's something that we plan to track every year for our students to see if it's true. Is this something that really can make a meaningful difference in their lives?
Could I dig in a little bit and ask you if you've seen some data on that yet?
It's anecdotal, at this point, but certainly right out of our program, our students, some of our students have been hired working at startups, working at companies, primarily some of them at companies, our strongest students, but actually a lot of them in education, and that's going to be a big focus for us. We're almost kind of feeding the beast, because as soon as our students now can build products on their own, there are so many other education organizations looking for to teach students down the pipeline. So they're coming to us and they're saying, can you give us 5 students who can now teach these middle school students, these elementary school students, and of course paying them. So that's been a big way that our students have been employed, and we love that. You learn so much from teaching, and it's also a place where our students have an edge, of course, because they also come from the background of these communities, and they know school because they're taught all the time. So they're real specialists.
The way I look at it is our students are our product at the end of the day. And it's our job to train them with the necessary skills to get high-paying jobs in one of the biggest wealth-generating industries of our lifetime. I mean, tech isn't even an industry anymore. Every company has a tech aspect to it. And that's one of the problems with traditional universities is, they graduate you, and I've never heard from Boston University. I'm $200K in debt. I've never heard from them unless they want me to write them a friggin' check. And I'm like, this is stupid. I was like, never like reaching out and saying, how you doing? Do you need career help? Which I luckily don't. But we have an entire team here at Galvanize dedicated to outcomes, to making sure that our students are graduating and we have hiring days and we're introducing them. We are giving them the opportunity to network with the people that need them in their industry. And then we look at salary ranges. Average salary out of our 3-month data science immersive is about $115K. And I call them kids, but they're older than I am. They have PhDs, 10 times smarter, are getting hired with Atlassian, Twitter, Tesla, Facebook, Airbnb. It's not just about percentage in tech and full-time employment. It's also about how much they're making, and it's also about retention. It's about following up. We're still fairly early. We've graduated probably 800 students over the last year, but we are going to start tracking the data on how many of them are still in their position and continuing. Data is key, right?
Anna, do you guys track anything after they finish, or?
Yeah, no, let me start a little bit from the beginning. So Udacity's been around as an education company for several years, and we've now shifted, as of October, into this program called the nano degrees. And these are these micro degrees where people take a series of modules, courses, and at the end they come out with an industry-ready certification. So in terms of tracking success, it's early, so it's really hard to say what are all the things that we're going to be able to track over time. It takes a while to see how those outcomes are going to play out, given it started in October. But what we do know is that in terms of the success of individual courses versus nano degrees, people are staying on the courses, they're completing in a timely fashion because they have incentives from a cost perspective to do that. And they're also signing up for more than one nano degree. So that is a great kind of at least initial indicator that it's helping them. The content is relevant, they're enjoying it. And we track things, again, because it's early, it's hard to say over the long term what kinds of outcomes it's going to have. But right now, people are engaging in forums. They are our own students are becoming mentors to other students. We have a structured program to do that. They're becoming code reviewers, so they're actually making money reviewing other people's code. We have a distributed workforce of people doing that. So some people are becoming workers through Udacity itself. Some people are gaining the skills through that work to then go and work independently. So in terms of early successes, those things are already happening. Definitely the goal is that people will, as you guys have mentioned, create community amongst each other, help each other, mentor each other, be their own, be each other's advocates, and help each other get jobs. Now, not everybody's goal when going into Udacity is to get a new job somewhere else. Some people are just looking to upskill, stay in their current company. Maybe they're looking to be an entrepreneur and build their own thing. There's just lots of reasons people go into it. So it's not exclusively getting jobs. But what I'm working on is helping people get jobs. And part of that, because I come from an inclusion background, I formerly worked at an organization called Cape Work Capital, which is an inclusion-specific venture capital firm. It's something I think about all the time. And I think it comes down to doing partnerships with the right kinds of organizations that are hanging out in places where people hang out. So in the cities where people care about this, in parts of the city where people care about this, or particular types of industries, or particular types of organizations that are reaching those communities. And we do have partnerships with nonprofits and scholarships. Like Adelantec is one of the programs we're involved with that is targeting communities of undocumented people in the Central Valley. So yeah, we're thinking about these too, and it's early. So for me, I definitely welcome the suggestions, but it's a big focus of what I'm working on.
It's very exciting to see Udacity move away from the original MOOC model and see how people get more engaged because of that. So it'll be exciting to see where it goes. Do you want to share?
Yeah, so a lot of, like what Anna was saying, people come to Girl Develop It for different reasons. So we've been around for 5 years, but in those 5 years, we tripled in size. Our chapters, we went from 16 chapters in 2013 to about 45 within a year. So we kind of see that as a success. Girl Develop It communities are sprouting up across the country. Another thing that we track is 84% of our students have taken more than one class, which means that we're engaging them in some way. But it's something that we struggle with because women are coming to us to upskill, to maybe get a raise in their current position, and some women are coming from having absolutely no tech background to learning tech skills. Some of them want to transition into tech careers or careers in the tech industry, and some, like you were saying, there's tech in every industry now. So we're not necessarily just trying to funnel these women to careers in an industry that's not always welcoming to them. We want to make sure that our main mission and what we're tracking the most is empowering them with the confidence to participate in these spaces and to have skills that they can go out and kind of survey their options. So opening opportunities. But another thing that we track is how much are our students participating in Girl Develop It and then going out into the broader community and taking part in other meetups. So joining a Girl Develop It class and then going out and having the confidence to go to the JavaScript meetup, that they've never felt comfortable going to before, going to the local Code for America brigade and hacking on issues that are important to them, but they've never really felt comfortable hacking before. So now we're trying to track how many women are, joining the broader community and being a part of this larger conversation and other opportunities. And we found that about 80% of our students say that Girl Develop It helped them become a part of these other initiatives, which is really exciting.
So one thing I've wondered about is when you have someone email your organization or walk in the doors and they really just have absolutely no technical background for whatever reason. I'm curious to know how you work with that, either programmatically or if it's not part of your program, where you send them and how you refer them to get to where they need to be.
So I can kind of give you my take on that. So we work with people kind of uniquely in, like I said, 3 major buckets. So young adults who are actually high school and before, university, and then also professional engineers in some cases at companies like Facebook or Dropbox where we work on site, but also with free classes we run for professional engineers who've hit a wall and want to expand beyond the horizons of where they're currently stuck in their current role. And so obviously one thing we found, which I can't stress enough, is really getting the time to take an understanding and really get empathy for the person's goals, right? So if you group people up into a group of 30 or 40 and they all have completely different backgrounds and goals, that's actually a good thing, but if you can align the cohorts, so you break them up into smaller groups where they can be surrounded by people with similar goals, with similar backgrounds, it makes a huge difference. In the early stages of our organization, we would group people sort of indiscriminate based on background, and we'd find that people would lose confidence because they'd find somebody else in the class who actually is so far ahead of them, right? Because of the years of additional experience, that actually they lose the ability, they actually think they're just not cut out for it. And so we learned this from an amazing organization, which I want to briefly bring up. I'm not involved in the organization. It's called Bridge Foundry. They do these things called Rails Bridge. If you're in this area, you almost certainly may have heard of it. They're all over different cities. What they do is they actually do an open call, a free event, and they say, anybody who wants to learn, regardless of background, come. But once you're there, they do something extremely important, which is they ask you a series of questions, and they group you into sub-cohorts based on your goals and your background. And I learned so much about the efficacy of goal alignment from that organization, and we do that 100% of the time. So as much as we possibly can, we want to be inclusive, but also be careful to group people so that they're not actually being deterred by the experience of people that are way ahead or way behind them, right? And that's an uncomfortable position to be in, right? If you have 10 years of programming experience, you don't want to, it's going to be difficult for you to sit in a class with somebody who's never coded, for both sides, right? So that's something we focus on a lot, is kind of these smaller cohorts, right? 10, 15, 20 people who all share the same goal, who are all relatable to each other. Again, kind of going back to my broader theme of like, you want a teacher and peers that are relatable to you. The more relatable the peers and teacher are, the more likely you will succeed, period. Regardless of curriculum, regardless of quality of the program, and so forth. So for us, I think that's the biggest kind of takeaway that we found has really helped people who have no experience get in the door, is building that confidence.
Yeah, I think something that we have a really unique opportunity in that our classes are all in person, is that we can really build these communities of women who continue to see each other at events and classes. And so a way that we kind of try to cultivate this environment of, for beginners, is that we always start every class with a few ground rules, and there are no stupid questions. We really want to encourage women to ask every single question, not be deterred by somebody, getting it really quickly if they're not getting it really quickly. And another way that we try to promote that is that we have a 5-to-1 student to TA ratio. So if they're not comfortable raising their hand and asking a question to the teacher who's going through the lecture, we have somebody that they can just turn to the side and say, hey, come help me with
Corinne,
this.
you said 5-to-1.
Yeah, 5-to-1.
Wow, that's incredible.
So we try to really make sure that there's always somebody who can help a student. And then also just peers. We every class we start, we have everyone go around and say their name. That's really important. Class starts very silent, and then we do these intros. In the break, everyone's talking. They know each other now. They have the connection points, like, oh, I'm here to learn the same thing, or I'm here from the same background, or trying to get to the same goal. So those type of things are really important for that in-person community building that we do.
Our admissions process is fairly lengthy. It's a 6-week process, and we do have a technical exam that you have to pass to get into the program. And there's pre-course material that we encourage students to take beforehand. We do encourage students to actually come and have some self-taught background. But we have cases, for example, we just had a student, I won't say her name, she's a young Latina. She was down in LA. She was winning all these incredible hackathons, right? And she had taught herself basically all these skills with her sister. And I had initially heard about her through the Latino network, and I had given her a call and I said, hey, I saw you have a GoFundMe campaign to go to another coding boot camp. And I said, we have a couple scholarships available. And she's like, you know what? She's like, I don't know if I'm ready. I said, well, I'll be your advocate. Apply. You have the drive. At Galvanize, we believe coding is a skill, and if it's a skill, you can learn it if you have the dedication to do that. So she ended up rushing through the process and then joining the cohort and realizing that she wasn't up to speed just yet. So we do our best to work with our students individually and make sure that they have support across the board. So what she's ended up doing is she's taking a break and she's joining the cohort that's starting in about 2 weeks. And then I've set her up with mentors with our big corporate partners to make sure that she is on the right path to succeed through these programs. So a lot of it's making sure that you have personal connections and understand each student individually as much as you can.
So if I could hazard a guess, if a student comes to you and says, I have no technical experience, I want to do data science, do you send them to Udacity? Like where,
Girl,
I'm just
develop it.
curious.
Send them to us.
Or, I'm just curious what the referral is.
I mean, we have workshops, data science.
You have workshops here that start from ground zero.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, we have day-long workshops. We encourage, encourage people to go to Treehouse. I mean, Udacity. There are all these online programs. We encourage people to go to the free online programs, just because a lot of these courses can be expensive, and we do have a couple partnerships that exist there. But it totally depends on where the student is and what their needs are.
And it seems like you guys are built to start at the beginning.
Yeah, again, we started with a consumer model, and we have a lot of content out there that is great, introductory CS and other kinds of technical content, and so there's definitely that, and all of that is free. All our content is free. The reason people pay us is actually because the structured program helps them finish. So we have things built into the program that makes them more successful, including code reviewing, mentorship. One thing that we've added to the point of helping people where they're at is a career advisor program. So people get feedback on their resume, their GitHub, depending on what kind of program you are, maybe your portfolio, and if you need a little bit more help, you go work on it a little bit more, and maybe you can get another review, and it kind of gets people further along their path. I think what's really cool about our product is, we don't come in with an expectation that the end goal is necessarily X. Like, it is an educational journey, and some people come in from the very beginning. Some people come somewhere further along in the middle of say, a different nano degree. But overall, I think the hope is that people will continue to grow their knowledge as they go.
Yeah, Elliot. On that question you asked, what do you do with students who haven't coded before? And I'd say that I would reframe that. We don't necessarily have challenges with students who've never coded before. What we find is students who don't have a great grasp of the fundamentals, particularly a certain level of math. Those are the students who will struggle in a fast-paced coding bootcamp and computer science course. And and the fact, at least it's clear that many of these coding boot camps, which have such low low admissions rates, are really screening for people who do have, certain fundamental skills. They've never coded before, but they're good at math. They studied physics. They studied chemistry. Similarly, many coding boot camps are actually working with professionals who are transitioning, people who have already held jobs. I'm sorry.
I think it's upstairs.
Oh, okay.
It's not you.
All right.
It's not you.
I'm rumbling things. People who've already held jobs and so have shown and evidence that they have a suite of workplace skills that, and really they're just learning this other skill and then taking everything else and transitioning it along. And so when we say how code schools and boot camps are changing the face of engineering, we have to be aware of, what they're really doing. That said, the kind of work and recruitment that Galvanize is doing and that General Assembly is doing is, of course, really important. And a lot of these challenges can be solved through this model. But I think it's important to also just be realistic about what these, about what's happening.
I think it's a fascinating point that reveals a bias that we may not see. Like, a lot of people in code schools probably had calculus, and maybe not everyone's had calculus, right? So maybe to piggyback off of that, I'm the one person up here not from a cool startup or nonprofit, and it's very old school, like traditional higher ed. So, my industry is totally threatened by this, and we realize that. What I'm wondering, though, is there's still a big bias, I think, in hiring that we've discussed, which is, okay, where did they go to school? Do they have a master's or even a PhD, as opposed to did they do a boot camp or some other form of education? I'm wondering if you could speak to how big is that problem, or if that's too obvious a question, how we can solve that problem of changing perceptions around the normal criteria of hiring someone.
I can speak to that if you want.
Anyone who.
Okay,
I just spoke.
I can speak to that. So one of the things I mentioned earlier, which I think she mentioned as well, is the importance of the trust networks. So this is actually something I think is really key to understand, is that you could be a maverick at coding, right? But if you don't have the trust networks and the relationships built to be able to get your foot in the door, it's very, very difficult to actually get in that first opportunity. And so I think the key to giving people the ability to get into that first opportunity, because once you've gotten your first professional job or your second professional job, where you went to school really just doesn't matter anymore, frankly, for most companies. Like if you've worked at Twitter, or you worked at a major company, a known company, or even an unknown company, and you've done a great work there, the work speaks for itself. But oftentimes, the first or even second jobs off the ground can be really, really difficult. And frankly, the easiest way in is to be really honest about the fact that it's relationship-based. So for example, if they just happen to be connected to more people who can give them that opportunity, if you connect them to enough people who see the potential in somebody will give them that first opportunity beyond the traditional screening process. Because I will say this, we work with 50 plus companies, and I will say that, not to name names, but the screening process is fundamentally broken at a lot of companies. I mean, fundamentally broken. And I can talk more about that, but I'll pass it on to someone else.
Nathan, I might take a little issue with what you're saying about doesn't matter whether it's a large company or a small company, because the issue of credentialing, particularly with people of color, is a really fraught one. And you find so many people of color who are successful in tech, at least that I've seen, are often coming from real name brands. You see people from top universities, or you see people from top companies. Maybe not top tech companies, but they're coming from Goldman. I mean, the Goldman alumni is like sweeping through the Bay Area. I mean, they're and other finance people who are bringing these major brands with them. And we are concerned, and in a sense, our students sometimes have to work twice as hard. That they do need to go to college. A student without a college degree, I think, with the the level of just discrimination, microaggression, it is really challenging. For a student who at least who really has never gone to college. I mean, at least apply and go for 2 years, you can say got in. But then also may want to supplement that with a coding bootcamp. But I think credentialing is really challenging. I think for many students, if you're at a company, but it's one that no one's ever heard of, just the kind of double standards that are out there, it can cause issues. And being at a major brand name company, I mean, we all know, we've all been in the job market. It helps. And that's one of the challenges I think that people of color face as they work to navigate the industry. Lots of industries.
I'd say for us, all of our curriculum, like I said, everything's built in-house. And we have hiring partners across the board. I mean, we're very fortunate to have such a large network of hiring partners. And we actually have computer science graduates, people with masters coming out of Colorado School of Mines, for example, which is one of the top CS degrees out there, coming to Galvanize and being like, all right, we graduated with a CS degree and we can't freaking code, and we want to be a developer, and then they end up coming through our program, and then all of our students are required to do internships, lengthy capstone projects on the data science side. So they're actually working on industry problems in our classroom with the organizations. The kind of organizations, because they get to choose who they're going to work with, that they're going to like to, or they're going to try to work with once they're out of the program. So they're getting a lot of industry experience in the classroom, which luckily translates into experience, on-the-job experience, once they do.
Speaking to a theoretical, practical gap.
Right.
Yeah.
It's funny because we're all kind of sitting in San Francisco, but I think a lot of what we see and hear in the tech industry and hiring in the tech industry is a completely different beast than the rest of the country, the rest of the world. And our students are all over. Our students are in the Midwest and in the rural South. And so their experience looking for jobs is completely different than what someone might face here. And their definition of success is different. So as we think about how we work with partners, we do a lot of education as well with them about targeting expectations, understanding what you actually want and need from a candidate. And so that's a big part of my job as well.
Yeah. And you obviously have students all over the world. You have students all over the world.
Yeah, all over the world.
Yeah.
The majority are in the US, but we have growing populations in India, in Brazil, and other places. So yeah.
Definitely outside the bubble we're in here. What about you, Corinne?
Yeah, so for Girl Develop It, what we found when our students kind of level up from being beginners to intermediate, having taken a good handful of courses, they're like, everyone's asking for our projects. Everyone wants to see our GitHub and see what we've contributed to. Like, can you provide us with opportunities to show that? Because that's, at least in the communities, some of the communities that we serve, that's what people are really looking for. Companies really want to know what projects you've contributed to, what you've worked on, and want to see your code. So what we did with that is we just piloted a mentorship program that pairs industry professionals with women who are trying to work on projects, specifically civic hacking projects or social good projects, and it's been really successful. And a handful of them have gotten jobs just straight out of that program.
Great. We are out of time. Please give a big round of applause for our panel.